I used Xiaomi Gamepad controller for 2 weeks and it changed my mind how decent it feels. So, a couple weeks ago, I made a video on my first try on Xiaomi Gamepad controller and I complained a lot about this controller. After 2 weeks of heavy usage, this controller actually does stand out from other competitors in the market. I've tried this controller on various games like Tomb Raider, Metal Gear Solid, Plague Tales, and even Genshin Impact. I even make a video while using this controller. I tried this controller mostly on PC. Unfortunately, I didn't find any games that works with this controller on mobile, including Genshin Impact. And I just don't play games on mobile too. Xiaomi, as the global audience know, is a smartphone company who love to slap megapixel on their camera. But the truth is, Xiaomi is not a phone company. It is a lifestyle company. Easy to say, they want to become a mixture of Apple and Samsung. Xiaomi made vacuum cleaner, battery pack, electric toothbrush, mechanical keyboard, and even a rice cooker. So, Xiaomi Elite controller is just part of their lifestyle lineup, or to be exact, a smart lifestyle product. I'll be honest, some of this product is actually hit or miss, and this controller probably a hit or miss too. One of the most noticeable features of this gamepad is the XYAB button, where Xiaomi, instead using a rubber dome, they use mechanical switch. Mechanical switch is not something new. Your cheap mouse probably use mechanical switch. Even Xbox bumper button use mechanical switch. Mechanical switch actually becomes so popular because of the custom keyboard hobbies popularized this type of switch for the past 20 years due to it is customizable, the enjoyment of building your own keyboard, and ultimately it has a better quality and a better lifespan than a rubber dome. So this particular group have the extreme spending habit where there is money, there is a business. All of these mechanical switch that we usually encounter in electronic product, aside, let's put it aside, keyboard mechanical switch, they fall into a group of micro switch. A switch that is small, tactile, but can have different mechanism to send their electrical signal. Like some require metal to metal contact and some is just a pure electric optical switch. Electric Terminology and mouseclub.co website provide a simple introductory of this switch. The difference between this Kyle, Omron, TTC or even Razer switch to any other switch in the cheap product is their lifespan. What Xiaomi did over here is to slap this micro switch to their new controller. I hate to say this to fake Apple, but it's just too damn good. It's amazing. The tactile is great. If you ever use only rubber dome switch or just a regular gamepad, Xiaomi Gamepad probably changed your view about gamepad button. This idea of putting micro switch on the controller is not new. Wolf then made a compelling YouTube video where he mod his Nintendo Switch with micro switch to give the tactile feedback, and the circuit switch on the gamepad is actually not complicated. It's just a closing and open switch. However, this type of mod require people to have a soldering skill, which can actually burn your house, and nobody wants that. The construction of this XYAB button is shown clearly in their promotional figures, where they actually put a silicone rubber to act as a spring for their button. They even put the figures behind their box. Out of all controller, despite how amazing this button feels, The silicone rubber makes the controller has a mushy feeling before the click even happens. This also attributes to how stiff it feels to click on this controller. This rubber also, I think, remove this very small vibration that you can feel from the micro switch. A heavy mechanical switch usually go beyond 70G. Cherry MBX green is 80G. Imagine double of that number and you heavily lube it. That's how stiff it feels with this button. Heavy button does not mean that it's bad or good, because this is actually a personal preference. Some people love heavy switch, some prefer no tactile feedback at all. Myself, after 2 weeks using this controller, a stiff button actually, I don't really care. I don't mind much, or perhaps I just push myself to love it. On this button, we operated it using our thumb and a lot of forces exerted on it. So perhaps the stiffness is an intentional design. Despite near zero travel distance, which making this switch a fast button, I still feel more accurate with rubber dome switch for the time limit game content, where button smashing is more often done. But when you just pressing for dialogue, oh yeah, this tactile button is like having a mechanical switch orgasm. The design of this controller probably the best design out of other controller in my possession. That being said, the design can be too small for someone with a huge hand, but if you are comfortable to grip around a PlayStation 3 or 4, then most likely you will be fine using this controller. The texture of this controller is ABS plastic, but hugely similar to cheap Logitech mouse, and almost all other Xiaomi lifestyle product using this plastic is not anything special. D-pad button most likely will turn people away with the circular design. During my play in Abyss, I realized that I tend to misclick button. Instead of changing to character 1, I change to character 3. The initial design of Xbox 360 a circular D-pad button, not a cross-shaped button, and Microsoft spent $100 million only to come to a conclusion. Circular design D-pad sucks. For casual gameplay, this circular design gamepad is fine, but when you start your panic mode, circular D-pad is absolute horror. This controller has the Alps joystick. It has a long shaft joystick but not crazy long. I don't feel any actual different to a sport controller or even short stick on 8-bit do. However, this joystick most likely the smoothest joystick out of all of my controller. Gulipit put a metal ring on the shaft and polished plastic on the outer ring. It managed to have a smooth glide after a few months of usage. Xiaomi joystick feels like the joystick is using lube out of the box. But since Xiaomi used plastic and plastic material, I'm not sure how long this feels will last. The circularity of this joystick still maintained the same after 2 weeks, but in comparison to any other controller that I have in my possession, this is nothing special. You can have a bad circularity with 5 years Xbox controller and still doing just fine. My 8-bit do has the best circularity out of other controller that I have, but it does not make any difference. You might need to go beyond 30% to start feel inaccurate, and at that point, your joystick most likely have a drift problem and is far worse than inaccuracy. The trigger button most likely the smoothest out of all controller, but the trigger button is on the medium size side. However, the trigger length is not far different from other controller. Xiaomi Gamepad controller also come with the back button. The way they implement this back button make the most sense, and your middle finger sits on the button naturally. 8-bit do controller have back button too, but the position of the back button need you to use the middle part of your middle fingers rather than naturally using the end of your fingers. Xiaomi design is so good to the point that I actually accidentally click on the back button most of the time. The back button is also left and right bumper button. I'm actually still salty because they don't allow us to customize the back button, but I only appreciate this after using it and familiarize myself with the layout during my Abyss run. I even changed 8-bit do controller layout to Xiaomi layout because it made the most sense. Xiaomi Gamepad Elite controller also have this gyroscope function. Let's be honest, it's 2022. Gyroscope function in controller is still horrible and not accurate. If you think gyro will make you place better, it is not. If only the game support gyro function, then it feels good. But if you want a competitive gameplay with a gyroscope, any player with mouse and keyboard will shove their hand into your ass. Gyro, to be honest, is pure gimmick for me. It can enhance your game experience, but it does not help you play better. It just like a healthy person want to experience a wheelchair and being pushed by the game developer. The vibration system of this controller is dual motor. Xbox has small and big wheel size. The closest I can attribute this controller feels is Nintendo Switch controller, but it's just stronger. The vibration system is hugely depend on the game developer. Some games support all vibration of the Xbox. Some support all PlayStation. Some don't give a shit. But the most generic one is the equal size weight balance. The best way to describe this uneven weight balance is like hearing music on stereo, and equal weight balance is like on mono sound. If that does it I don't I'm yeah. This does not mean that mono sound is bad. You can have a horrible audio with the stereo sound, but still a great experience with a mono sound. So this where the personal preference matters. Different manufacturer has different tuning to their vibration system. Microsoft and GuliKit has a similar uneven weight balance, but these two controllers actually feels totally different in action. Different game developers support vibration system differently. Xbox controller has 4 motors, while the rest of the controller usually have 2. There is no standard in the vibration system. In this comparison, I will go through the difference between 5 years Xbox wireless controller and Xiaomi controller. In game Metal Gear Solid 5, when they open past Tamash, you can feel the rumbling from past heavy breathing and screaming. Xbox controller capture this effect as medium vibration. Xiaomi, on the other hand, produced a stronger vibration, but not too much. During the part where Snake checking past heartbeat, both controller produced a similar vibration strength. In both situations, Xiaomi vibration is actually much smoother. This is like playing video on low bitrate and high bitrate, where Xiaomi controller is actually using a high bitrate. But in terms of being expressive, Xbox controller feels more enjoyable due to uneven weight. In game Tomb Raider, when the plane winds falls down and when the explosion occurs, Xbox controller provide way too strong feedback, while Xiaomi controller is much less explosive. This is an Apple-approved figure how I describe the vibration strength between these controllers. Again, the tuning of vibration system is personal preference. Another thing to note is when I was playing Genshin Impact on the PC, during the domain run, Xiaomi controller produced a feedback during the run, while other controller, Gulkit, Xbox, 8-bit Do, all this controller does not produce any vibration at all. The moment I found this, Genshin feels far more enjoyable to play on the controller. It's like Xiaomi suddenly put a color in my Genshin world, where before it was grey and dull, gloomy, but now it feels colorful, cheerful. I'm not sure how the console experience if the game actually support vibration mode in the console, but I'm very sure the designer of this controller collect waifu. Other game is exactly the same. I also encounter a problem where the right bumper stick to the enclosure housing. I believe this just to my controller, and a simple scrap to the controller housing fits it. After 2 weeks of heavy use also, the right bumper start to lose its tactile feedback. It's not gone yet, it's just getting weak. This tactile button is just a regular button. Plus, this issue is not new to me. All of my controller that have tactile switch on the bumper, especially on the right, will be out of service very fast. I just use right bumper a lot. The back button, bumper button and trigger button has a polished plastic surface. I have a sweaty hand. So after 2-3 hours of use, the sweat and dirt from my hand make the controller feel gross to the touch. And when the color is light grey, it becomes so obvious to the eye. Xiaomi Gamepad price in AliExpress is about 70 USD. If you want to try an amazing tactile button but stiff, if you are playing Genshin Impact on PC with controller, if you are just want to taste the Apple version of China, if you are playing games that support generic Bluetooth controller on your phone, you might want to try Xiaomi Gamepad Elite controller. So, at the end of this video, to conclude, is the pro and the con of this controller. Do you like the design of the controller and what Xiaomi did to their controller? See you next time. Bye.